Welcome to the Femalepreneur Coach podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Barr. I am a transformational mindset and business coach and six-figure award-winning female entrepreneur. Ladies, I'm here to tell you that business and making money doesn't have to be hard when you're in alignment and flow. Inside this podcast, I will be showing you how to transform your mindset to program it for success, how to maximize your money vibrations, and how to redesign your business for ultimate financial and time freedom. You know you are meant to live an epic life. Now it's time to claim it. Hey ladies, welcome to another episode of the Femalepreneur Coach podcast. I'm your host Rebecca Barr, and I am super excited today to be joined by Dianah Johnson, who is the CEO and founder of the ThoughtWork Institute. She's also a six-figure business owner who basically supports other coaches to work with their clients and create transformation at the deepest possible level. I'll allow Dianah to sort of introduce herself formally, but we've already been chatting before the interview and I am so excited for this episode. I feel like this is literally just for me because we're going to be absolutely geeking out about all things in the subconscious mind, which is something that I just love to work with. So welcome to my little show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm so excited to be here.
All the way from Canada, which is crazy. So I'm super grateful. But would you like to introduce yourself to the ladies as well?
Sure. As you said, I'm Dianah, and I'm the CEO and founder of the ThoughtWork Institute. And the Institute is really dedicated to training other coaches in the Rapid Reprogramming methodology, which is a coaching methodology that gets to the source of our clients' unwanted emotions and behaviors. So we are creating a ripple effect, I like to say, throughout the world with this type of work where we get to the subconscious mind, which you and I will talk about, I'm sure, driving 95% of all of our results. And I also work with coaches one-on-one for their own subconscious healing for high performance and success.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. When you just said about the ripple effects, I was just curious actually to ask my first question to jump straight in about whether you mean in terms of like the Maharaji effect of the collective in doing that work.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what I mean by it. I actually was talking to one of our certified coaches yesterday about this because she's having such incredible results with her clients. And as she was in the program, she was doing her own subconscious healing. So she was feeling a lot of freedom from her own mind. Her results were changing, and then her clients' results were changing because they were giving her incredible testimonials. So when I say a ripple effect, my podcast, which you know is called Your Light is Your Legacy. So it is that ripple effect of us returning to our own light by releasing our own subconscious programming and then helping other people do the same. So the ripple effect of spreading that light from me to you to their clients and so on and so on.
And it just essentially makes the world a better place, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I definitely think it's needed, particularly for coaches, because I don't know about you, but a lot of us that have moved into this space, it's come from a place of just one, either being in a dark place previously and having, come to the other side of it and now wanting to support and empower other people to experience that transformation as well. But we often leave ourselves behind as coaches in that we're not practicing the things that we know, will support our clients. We're not perhaps investing in our self-care, and we're not doing that healing as well. So I love that you work with coaches to work with themselves too. I think that's really valuable. So one of the things that we spoke about actually off camera that I was super interested to dive into was around the work that you speak about with identity. Because I think a lot of the time with women, I was just saying as well that I work with, particularly, they've kind of achieved a certain element of success, but they've done it one way, i.e., hustle and grind, doing it all themselves. So then when a coach steps in and says, actually, if you want to scale and grow any further, we need to make some changes, it's really hard for them to kind of embrace that process and see any other way, because it's almost become an identity now. That they are that woman that validates herself by being busy, by doing more things than other people do, and that supposed measure of success. So how does your work help them to kind of transition away from those things at an identity level?
Okay, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet, but this is how it works, where what's happening on the outside. So the results that we see is a direct reflection of what's actually happening on the inside, not positive thinking, not mindset work, but in terms of what we can create in our world, it is directly linked to what we believe is possible, what we believe we deserve. And this is, like you and I had talked about earlier, this is the brain science behind it, because we have a system in our brain that filters in what we need to see to create the success that we believe is possible. The issue is, I don't like to say issue, but the work that I do with people is looking at what do you actually believe, not consciously, which is your conscious brain running 5% of the show, but on a subconscious level. So this is how it works from the time you were born till you're 8 or 9 years old. Life is happening to you and planting seeds in your subconscious mind, planting seeds about your worthiness and what you deserve and whether or not the world is safe. And I don't mean big T trauma or little T trauma, just everyday life is happening when your mom ignored you when you showed her your report card, or you try to get on your bike and you fell, or you had a crush on a boy in kindergarten and he didn't pay attention to you. All of this is planting seeds in your subconscious mind, and then life continues to unfold and you have disappointments and rejections and sadness and all of the things that then water that seed, and the belief becomes rooted in your subconscious mind. And then what happens, you fast forward to creating your business, for example, and that programming is still running the show, but it's so automatic that we don't know it's running the show. And it accounts for 95% of how we feel and how we act and how we react. And only our action creates results. So when someone thinks, oh, I'm lazy, or I'm unmotivated, or I'm procrastinating because this is not the right thing for me, it's often because of what they believe in their subconscious mind, but it's so automated they don't know that's where it's coming from. So if you look at what the emotion may be, like feeling unmotivated or feeling fearful, what's driving that is something that started from the time you were born till you're 8 or 9 years old. It's so incredible. So what's happening is we're trying to get to another level of success with the same programming that created what we have right now. And every new level of your business will require a new level of you. And when I say a new level of you, I mean a new level of belief, not just positive thinking.
Yeah. Do you know what? I love what you just said about watering the seeds. I've never heard it explained in that way, but it's absolutely true, isn't it? Every time our brains are already, dispositioned to have a negativity bias. So when something bad happens, it's just reconfirming a belief that we already have, that we're not good enough, or that making money needs to be hard, or all of those things. And I think the way that you've just kind of described it with it's planting seeds, and then those instances are essentially watering them seeds, makes so much sense. I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it. So this is something that I'm also curious as well about, is if the beliefs are unconscious and you're not even aware that you're doing it, and this is where self-sabotage and procrastination comes in, how do you get to those root causes and actually change them?
So great question. And I love that you asked that, because a lot of us, and I know you're a hypnotherapist, as am I, so a lot of us think the subconscious mind is like this deep, dark, buried place where you have to dig it up, that kind of talk therapy that makes
Yeah.
bring it all up from the past and re-traumatize yourself. None of that's necessary. None of that's necessary, right? With the subconscious mind, it is all there and you're just not fully aware of it yet. So the analogy I love to use is that if you were looking out the window and there's this big, beautiful oak tree, but from the vantage point that you have, you can't see the tree. The tree is still there. You just can't see it. But if you were to move to the left slightly, you can see the oak tree that was there all along. That's what's happening for the beliefs in your subconscious mind. It's simply about bringing it into your awareness. Now, the best and easiest way to do that is through relaxation, because we want to calm the conscious brain. So the conscious brain is like the GPS in your car, but it is not the driver. It is just the logical one, right? That says, here's where you need to go and this is what you need to do. And unfortunately, in most of us, the conscious brain is the editor that's, you're already good enough. You're good enough. You don't need to do this work. It kind of talks you out of things Do you know what I mean? It's that logical, rational one. So when we can calm that editor, we can
Yeah.
actually speak to the subconscious mind. We can uncover what it is that's been running on autopilot. So many people will say that the first step in change is acceptance, but it's actually awareness,
Yes.
right? So if you don't know what's running on autopilot, you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to change that. So the very first step is through relaxation exercises. So it could be breath work, it could be meditation. For me, it's walking in nature. Sometimes I do meditation and get downloads, but you don't even just getting relaxed and thinking about your mind as though it is a radio. So when you're listening to the radio, unless it's like politics or religion or something, for most of us, unless it's a controversial station on, we're just listening to it. It's in the background. We have no judgment.
Yeah.
That's how you need to treat your mind, where you're just listening to it like it's a radio playing in the background and becoming aware of what's running through your mind. So those 60 to 70,000 thoughts you have a day running on autopilot, with 80% of them the same as the day before, no wonder your results don't change, right? It's
Yeah.
all the same. So bringing it into awareness, that alone can be life-changing.
Yeah.
So getting into a really relaxed state and sitting in silence, listening to what it is that's coming up. I love to start with the symptoms. The symptom is the emotion,
Mhm.
right? So if you were to go to the doctor and you want a fix for something, you have to talk to him about the symptom first, or he can't tell you how he can help you, right? It's the same thing for you. Start with the symptom, which is the emotion. So if you have fear of taking your business to the next level and investing a lot of money to make a lot of money, start with the symptom, which is fear, and then get into a very relaxed state and start to listen to the dialogue that comes up. We don't need to dig into, well, this is when I was 3 years old and I heard my father say this, and this is why I'm scared. No,
Yeah.
just listen to what's coming up today that's responding to what it is that you want to do, that's actually triggering the fear. I always say my triggers will lead me deeper into my freedom from them. I'm happy to be triggered
Yes.
because it's the
Yes.
only way I know what I need to work through and to get freedom from them. I'm like, oh, this is juicy. I'm going to see how I can get rid of this, right? I'll do
Yeah.
my own rapid reprogramming to get rid
Yeah.
of it.
This is where things like jealousy really has a bad rap, doesn't it? Because it's actually a really powerful identifier, like you say, a trigger that can lead to rapid change. Because if you
Yeah.
understand, why am I getting jealous? Why am I jealous of this person? What is coming up for me? Is it because I believe that what they have is not possible for me too? Where does it where did that come from? I don't know about you, when you are just a person who is ready for change, and you want to kind of switch on that hyper awareness, you can lead down a complete rabbit hole, can't you? Some days I'm sitting there having these absolute lengthy conversations, like, when did I decide? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
What is this symbolizing for me? Like, literally these
Yes.
conversations in my
Yeah.
head are just, I'm like, God, if anybody was watching me right now having these
Yeah.
conversations, they would
And
think that I need rapid transformation.
and I think, to your point about jealousy, I think all emotions are as painful as they are because we label them as a problem and we label them as painful,
Yeah.
when truly they're just a symptom that allows us to have enough information to know that there's something that we need to work on in our subconscious mind, because our subconscious mind holds the memory of everything that has ever happened to us. So when life is happening today, as we're building our business, it's dipping into the subconscious to say, this is similar to the time you were rejected or disappointed or failed when you were younger. It's not that we need to go back there. It's just understanding that, okay, this symptom, the emotion, is being triggered from my programming. This isn't good or bad, right or wrong. It just is. And it gives me a line of inquiry so I can release it and get freedom from it. Like, if you don't want the fear, right, you first have to identify it as the symptom, get to the source of it, which are the beliefs in the subconscious mind, release those, and then take the action to reinforce new beliefs.
Yeah.
I know I make it sound so simple, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's quite interesting actually as well to me about because I have always intuitively been of the mindset that, I've got childhood trauma and stuff, but I don't have any desire to revisit it. But I've always felt this sense of I need to circle back on this. At some point, I'm going to have to heal it. And at some point, I'm going to have to revisit it. But are we now saying that we don't? And it's okay to just instead move on from that and perhaps, through neural plasticity, instead create different connections and thoughts and feelings when triggers and things happen so that I don't need to heal that. Is that
But you
right?
are, yeah, but you are healing it.
Yeah,
So by the work that you're doing today in the present, as it manifests in your everyday life that you can tangibly see and feel and experience, you're healing what's happening in the past
amazing.
by
That's
doing that work. So I'll give you an example. I started doing rapid reprogramming and really truly created a transformation when I went through a divorce because it triggered the old childhood stuff,
yeah,
right? Because none of us will do, well, I shouldn't say none, but the majority of people will not do the hard work if we feel okay. Even if it's mediocrity in our life, it's still not painful enough to do the hard work. When we do the hard work, it is because the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of doing the hard work. So
yeah,
that was what had happened to me, was that, okay, I need to heal what happened in my childhood, because now today the pain of the divorce is triggering everything that has ever happened to me, and I need to start releasing this.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because presumably, as well, if you want to then move into a new relationship or a new phase of life, if you're carrying around all of this emotional trauma, you're not going to be able to do it. And I think it's like you've obviously left a situation because it wasn't working for you. So you've recognized enough that something needs to change, and probably something in myself as well. So I don't manifest the same. So
Mhm.
therefore, you're prepared, like you say, to do the work and then, hope that there's going to be something even better on the other side. So
And
that's
the work that I yeah, and the work that I do, I see the emotional trauma as a symptom
yeah,
of the programming. So let's say that you were a child and one of your parents, like your mother, leaves when you are young, then that plants a seed that you're not good enough for your mother to stay, or that everyone leaves you, or that you're going to be abandoned, and then you get in a relationship and you have the same thing. Just to make it relatable to your audience, I'll give you money stories are a perfect example of programming that shows up in your business. So here's a personal one. I had done rapid reprogramming many, many years ago for personal stuff that I just talked about. And then I had spent years in the corporate world. So I'd never, ever had to address my programming on being an entrepreneur, which about making money and what money means, and making a lot of money sometimes. Like, I'd never had to address that. So when I left the corporate world and became an entrepreneur, some things in my programming came up, and I always know to look at the symptoms in my life. So I was procrastinating and I really wanted to build a successful business. So why was I procrastinating? My conscious desire,
yeah,
right, was misaligned with my subconscious beliefs and
yeah,
my stories, like my money stories. So as soon as I noticed that my feelings and actions were not in alignment with what I say I want in my business, which was success, I immediately went to rapid reprogramming. And what I identified, which hopefully this is relatable to your audience, what I identified was, because my father was is an entrepreneur, when we were growing up, he was mostly around for like doctor's appointments, but he worked all the time. I happen to admire that in him, but I didn't realize that when I became an entrepreneur, I had the belief that if I were to be really successful, the people I loved would miss out on time with me.
yeah, yeah.
Subconscious belief, did not know I had it, but can you imagine how much it was sabotaging me in the form of procrastination, because my subconscious was trying to protect me?
Absolutely. Well, it's undermining all of your best efforts, isn't it? Because it's like having
100%.
one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. Like part of you does want it, but then there's part of you holding back and
Mhm.
make it, second guessing and all of the things because, like you say, it's going to lead to sacrifice. And yeah,
The
absolutely.
conscious brain, right? The
Yeah,
conscious brain wants it. So
yeah,
there's people listening right now who, if you ask them from a conscious perspective, like if my logical brain says to your logical brain, do you want to be successful? Yes, I absolutely want to be successful. And they may have subconscious beliefs that says being wealthy is greedy, being
yeah,
wealthy is selfish. You can't be wealthy and spiritual. Like, I work with coaches all the time that have these subconscious beliefs that are counterintuitive to what their conscious desire is. When there is a misalignment, this is what I talk about in terms of creating an identity, a subconscious identity of success. When there is a misalignment between the conscious desire, which is, to make multi-six figures, for example,
Yeah, no
and
one's going to
then
say no, are they? No, I don't want any
exactly,
more money. Thank you.
exactly. So when there's a misalignment between the conscious desire and the subconscious beliefs, then
Then
that's when you're not getting the result that you want, no matter how hard you're working.
yeah, absolutely. And I see that time, obviously, I'm a money mindset coach, so I see it often where people are just holding back. But also one thing that I think, and I don't know if this kind of covers the remit as well, it's the thought of leaving people behind. So there's a lot of community in being broke and being stuck and being, familiar to the people that you grew up with. When you then decide that I want to be, successful and create something for myself, you're almost feeling that need to like leave those people behind. So there's also that element, isn't there, from a tribal part in your brain, where your primary desire is to be part of a tribe and a community and a collective, to feel
Mhm.
that you have to leave them behind in order to be successful. I know can be a bit of a dilemma as well for people.
Yeah, and that's all part of the programming. We could think of so many emotions and then tie it back to what the programming is. Like there are people who have guilt when they're very successful because, well, maybe they're not able to spend as much time with their kids, or they had parents who weren't as successful, so they may have guilt around that. There's so many things that we could link back to what the emotions are we experience in our business, and then the programming that's triggering it. Like I said, it's driving 95% of the show.
No, it's when I heard that statistic, it truly was quite shocking to me how little we consciously create. Like we are literally sleepwalking through our lives on a
Mhm.
continual loop of Groundhog Day, rinse and repeats. And I thought I was like, oh, I'm quite high energy, like, every day is different, but actually every day is the same as it relates to your internal
Right.
dialogue and what you actually think is possible for you. So that was quite confronting to me, to realize actually I'm just a rinse and repeat version of myself from years ago.
Mhm.
Despite the outside appearance of some things changing, there were some things that were never going to change unless I did
Mhm.
some of this internal work. So I do
Mm.
want to come back to that actually, because I'd love to know what this method is, and for anybody that wants to create that rapid change. But I'm just curious actually how you came to be a coach and your journey up until this point, like your connection to this work.
Mhm.
So you obviously had a corporate career. What was that in?
It was in human resources. So I was the director of human resources for one of the largest companies in Canada, and I was traveling all over Canada. I had 10,000 employees that I was responsible for, and I just left it all. I
Yeah.
actually moved to my basement and rented my upstairs of my house. And I
Oh,
should say, I do not recommend anyone doing this, but because rapid reprogramming now. I'm calling it rapid reprogramming. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. Of course, I have perfected this over the last decade, and lots of training on the brain, etc. But because of this type of work had completely transformed me and had enabled me to be at peace. And of course, that's not always. I'm not going to be one of those people who say I'm always at peace, but my ability to process what happens in life is so much faster
yeah,
because
you've got a toolkit.
I
Yeah,
have trained my brain to be able to release those beliefs on its own because I've
yeah,
done so much of the rapid reprogramming in the brain. It's based in neuroplasticity. We know we can change our brain, right? So
yeah,
I have rewired my brain to be able to do that. But because it had changed my life so much, I just had such a yearning to create this ripple effect. I think it is an absolute shame and travesty that we suffer so much as humans, and we do not need to. Now, of course, there are external circumstances that happen beyond our control. I'm talking about the everyday suffering that we create um,
for
on
ourselves.
ourselves, for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I was definitely one of those people who had created a lot of my own suffering. And when I did this type of work for the subconscious mind, completely changed my life. So that was the biggest part of it. Like I was really at rock bottom, as they say, did this work totally from a universe intervention. I found the work that actually helped me, this brain work, and then continued to study it to figure out why did this work when nothing else I've ever tried, because I had tried to do a lot of what I call symptom work.
Yeah.
Now I call it symptom coaching. So I had tried all of the stuff I love. I love meditation and breath work and exercise and being in nature. These are all things that really help the physiological response in the body. But when you still have the trigger in the mind, those results are temporary. And that's what had happened to me. So everything would make me feel good for a little while, but I still had programming that said, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Right. Or what, and all the other stuff that came from my childhood. So when this had happened and I had released those, I started to study the brain and really understand why and how it worked. And then started, obviously, eventually, I'm really fast forwarding here, but started working with clients and and created this institute to train certified other coaches to do this methodology, because I just saw my clients getting the same results that I did. And now my certified coaches, I mean, I just had one of our coaches the other day, her very first client ever using rapid reprogramming, recorded a testimonial with, she's crying and saying nothing else has worked for her. And it was just absolutely incredible. And this is why I get up in the morning, because now it's not only me changing, now it's not only the clients that I can physically help, like have enough bandwidth to help, but now it's all of the certified coaches that go help all of the clients that they do. That's what I'm talking about, the ripple effect. To answer your
Got like
question.
an Oprah level legacy here.
Yeah, definitely not that, but one person is worth it.
Yeah.
I had this client when I was a divorce coach, and it was probably one of my greatest moments as a coach. She had sent me this 5-page letter, and these little glass elephants, you can see, I know nobody else can see, but that one right there.
Oh,
This 5-page letter, these glass elephants, and she said, and I didn't tell you this story, but there was a whole elephant connection to the universe's sign for me about that I would be okay. And then that's when the work in rapid reprogramming started, during that difficult time years ago. She knew this story, and after I worked with her, she wrote me this letter and said, these glass elephants are from my mom who passed. And I knew as soon as I saw them that she would want you to have them, because she was so worried before she passed away that I wouldn't be okay for my divorce. And there was lots more in the letter. And every time I read it, still years later, it makes me cry. And if she were the only person
yeah.
that I touched with this work, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
And I genuinely mean that. It is my greatest pleasure and gift, really a gift, to be able to certify other coaches to do this, because like I started with this story with, I think it's a travesty. We do not need to suffer. I'm actually for the last 10 years, I have been in makeup mode, where I am making up for all of the time in the first half of my life that I disturbed my own peace.
Yeah.
Arguing against reality and making myself suffer because I wanted people to be different and things to be different. And, all of this stuff that I couldn't control. The only thing I could control was my inner world. And when I finally figured out how to do that, I'm thinking, I have to pass this on to other people, because I don't think we are meant to suffer. I truly do not believe we are meant to suffer, although we grow from it.
Yeah.
It's the greatest opportunity for growth. There is something else, like life itself is painful enough when people you love pass away, for example.
Yeah.
And when we have natural disasters and we have war and we have things that make life difficult enough, we don't need to make our internal world any
Even
more
harder.
difficult, right? We truly don't. I think we are meant to experience the ebbs and flows of life, but most of us are ruining the flow with
Yeah.
their own brain.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that comes from so many external factors as well, but also they're just validating what is already going on from an internal point of view. Absolutely. And it's so true. I just feel like it gets to be easy. Life gets to be great. And almost there's a skepticism around that. I remember literally having a conversation with my brother the other day about work. And obviously, he's not quite as switched on with the entrepreneurial world. And he's still very much conditioned in the mindset that you go to work and you hate your job and you just live for your weekends. And I said to him, this isn't how life is. This isn't living. Like, this isn't actually how life is meant to be. And he's like, yeah, but that's just how it is, isn't it? No one loves their job. Everyone lives for the weekend. Like, that's just how it is. And I'm like, but it's not. It must be so, like, it's so frustrating for me as a business coach as well, because I know that there's people selling, like making money online, selling dead hamsters. And I keep using this story. I saw it in the news once. A woman that actually gets like dead mice and hamsters from her garden and then puts them into like funny poses, like puts them on roller skates and like pom-poms and sells them online. She's making six figures doing this.
Wow.
So it's super frustrating for me when I think, God, people are so closed off with the potential that is out there and what is truly, like you say, available for us when we do the work and when we allow ourselves to be at peace and happy.
But I mean, that is the programming as well. We have
Yeah.
when you think about the messages that we have grown up
Yeah.
hearing, that's all programming. So I have no reaction to any of it because I understand that, well, it's just programming. When we are exposed to a certain culture, certain parents, certain teachers and friends and media, we have this programming. So I just think it's words in our mind that we can actually release to have a different experience. Here's how I visualize it and what the goal is of all of the work. When you buy a brand new computer and you first open it, all it says is hello.
Yeah.
It doesn't know how to do anything else. It's not programmed. Our default setting, like that default setting on the computer before it is programmed, it actually is peace and contentment. Before life happens to you, your light that you were born with and as before the programming is the peace and contentment. It innately knows its worth. It knows that it is already everything. And then life starts to happen and you start to forget. And I believe at some point in your life, the journey becomes about remembering your light, your default setting, and any programming that's getting in the way of that. You have an opportunity to release it. So you get to experience the default setting. Will external things happen like war and death and illness that we have no control over? 100%. But it is the moments in between when you don't have the programming that you get to live in the default setting that makes life so much more beautiful. And this is why I'm in the makeup season of my life of I wasted the first half in not my default setting, in a programmed setting. And now I like to be in the light as often as possible so I can make up for the time that I lost. And I want to help other people do the same.
Yeah. Oh, and it's so true, isn't it? I love that it's about remembering who you are, really. Because obviously I have 5 children and they say like your children are your greatest teachers, and it's so true because even with the baby now, she's like, just over a year, she has no inhibitions. She finds joy in the smallest of places. She is all in. She experiences the fuller range of emotions. She's like joyful, then she's like very tearful. And
She's so much closer to the default setting because she's not as
yeah,
old.
yeah. And
This
I
is
just
why
don't,
children can experience life differently because they haven't had a lifetime of programming.
yeah. And I just want to be the protector of that light. I really see as a parent, that's almost our role, is to just kind of nurture and guide and facilitate our children. So I don't have any, I mean, I'm quite a casual parent in that sense that, I don't, my kids challenge everything. Like,
Yeah.
why do I have to do that? Why does it have to be this way? I mean, they love to do that anyway. Keep me on my toes, but I'm constantly questioning even, my parenting decisions and my, like bedtime structure routine. And I'm like constantly weighing it up. Well,
Yes.
children are comforted by boundaries and routine, but does it need to be this way for all of them, all
Mhm.
exactly the same? So it's been a real period of growth for me because how I parented my very first child when I was still very much in corporate and, being led by what my experiences as a child and what other adults and other parents were telling me, I'm much more empowered now to work almost, like I say, in collaboration with my children. And,
Mhm.
all of their personalities are vastly different as well. But just letting them be and just trying to safeguard that light for as much as possible, which is difficult when they then go to school. And
Yes.
that's entirely out of your control. So we have lots of confronting conversations around all girls are cheerleaders and all boys are like sportsmen, all of these ridiculous stereotypes that
Yeah.
now I'm so much more aware of where the conditioning comes from.
Yes.
But I would love to know more about what this process is. So if I was somebody that maybe is at that crossroads like you were, where they have just hit rock bottom and they
Mhm.
are, or not even, but they've just at a point where they've just suddenly had an awakening. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of us, that happened during COVID,
Yes.
where we were suddenly, the realm of possibilities for how we could live life suddenly, like the doors were thrown wide open, and things that were not even contemplated or a potential are now suddenly like, oh my god, maybe. If you were at that crossroads, how do you create rapid
Mhm.
transformation at an identity level?
Yeah, so it really is what I talked about before. Obviously, in this podcast, I can't go into all of the
Yeah,
more details of it because one of the biggest parts of doing this process is understanding how it works in the brain.
yeah.
Because if you don't understand how it works in the brain, it can allow for self-blame and victimhood and misunderstanding. Like there's standards of practice around this. It's really, really important for it to be effective because your subconscious mind actually can go into resistance and defense mode.
Mm,
So what I will say is for anyone who just wants to begin the process of loosening the programming's grip is, like I said before, getting in a very relaxed state intentionally, identifying the symptom that they want to start to release, which could be fear, for example, and then in that relaxed state, allow for the subconscious mind to bring into awareness what it is you're thinking that's triggering that fear. So it does take some practice for, if you're not working with a coach, for example, and you haven't observed your thoughts before, it may take some practice, but it could be as simple as allowing yourself to vent on paper. So let's say you're feeling fear and allowing yourself after doing the relaxation technique to vent on paper all of the things that come up as you experience the fear about a specific situation. Let's say it's investing in your business, allowing yourself to vent on paper, and you will find what it is you believe in the words on that paper.
yeah.
And then becoming the best lawyer. So what most people try to do is flip it like positive thinking and affirmations, where you're trying to lay a belief on top of the beliefs you already have, trying to lay it on top of the neural pathway that already exists, where the power is actually releasing the neural pathway that's creating the limiting and painful thought.
Yeah.
So when you're discrediting these limiting and painful thoughts and becoming that best lawyer to poke holes in them, what
Yeah.
you're doing is actually speaking the language of the subconscious mind, because you are giving examples in images and stories and metaphors to show that this limitation and this painful thought that's carried on this neural pathway may not be fully true, that there are examples that you can show the subconscious so the subconscious can allow for it to release.
Okay. So it's more like removing the foundation on which it stands on rather
A
than just
hundred
trying to like completely ignore it and be like, no, because
or
if the
or push it away or do
yeah,
affirmations, or I'm not gonna think that
yeah,
way, or I'm just gonna say the
yeah,
opposite every day and repeat it over and over and over.
yeah,
Of course, as a hypnotherapist, I love the reprogramming work,
yeah,
but reprogramming is a lot harder when
yeah,
you're actually have the programming, you haven't released the old
yeah.
programming so you can reprogram the new beliefs that actually work for you. So if you think about it this way, if you were to take a path through the garden every single day, the same path, eventually the grass is worn down. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't even dawn on you to take a different path through the garden. You're automatically going to go through the path that's worn down. This is how your brain works. If it has been carrying a belief on a neural pathway over and over and over, it doesn't even dawn on the brain that there is another path to
Yes.
take. When you bring into awareness these examples, you are showing the brain, wait, there's
I
another
understand.
pathway.
Yeah,
I can release, I can get off of this path that has been running on autopilot, triggering this fear, and take the path over here.
that's so interesting because a lot of us wear those labels and we don't even know that there's another way. So for an example, like I've got clients that will say, I'm an introvert. I'm not a very confident person. I'm always like, that's just who I am at an identity level. I'm never going to change. And actually, there's an
Mhm.
opportunity there to reprogram your whole
No
identity.
labels. Yeah,
Yeah.
no labels.
Do you follow Dr. Joe Dispenza, Breaking
Yes.
the Habit? I love his
Yeah,
book, Breaking
I
the
do
Habit
know
of
him.
Being
Yeah.
Yourself, because I think my ultimate mission in life, I've got two siblings that are just complete chalk and cheese to me. And although we've got some shared experiences, they're just on a completely different path. And I'm like, if I can show them and work with them, that would
Yeah.
be my life's purpose. I think that there is another way. But I love that. It's almost like taking it one step further, isn't it? That work around working with the subconscious
100%.
brain. In
Yeah.
not only are you just trying to instead erase this stimulus and response, i.e., when I'm about to go live, I get nervous, rather than trying to remove that and create something more positive and affirming and helpful. It's actually going back to that original belief and
The
just
source.
removing the very foundation that it is even sitting
Mhm.
on. I love
Yeah.
that
And
because
that's what
that's
I
like,
mean by
yeah,
getting to the source.
yeah,
And to your point about labels, I do not use labels for this reason. You are that because you believe you are that. And if you
yeah,
didn't believe you are that, you wouldn't be. So I actually, labels are like, no.
yes,
Actually, the other word that I would, other than labels, the other thing that I would remove from the planet if I could is the word should or
yes,
shouldn't. You
yes,
are in pain because you believe things should or shouldn't be a certain way, and they are not.
yes,
And imagine you couldn't believe it. Imagine what life would feel like if you could not have the belief that something or someone should be different than it is.
yeah. That's so powerful, isn't it? And funny enough, have you ever heard of the saying, something like, Lord, grant me the wisdom to know the things that I can, that I can't remember
Yes.
it is, but it's like, but
Yes.
my nan used to say this to me all my grandma all the time when I was little. That was one of my worst traits. She was like, you just can't accept that things are the way they are. You're still fighting against things that are never going to change. And I'm
Mhm.
like, but they have to, but why are they that way? Like tortured. I tortured myself. And I still, even as an adult, struggle to accept that some things just are the way they are. So it's so
Because in a
interesting.
neural path, if you didn't have the neural pathway that carried the belief of should,
Yeah,
any shoulds,
yeah,
then it just is, right?
yeah,
When you see it, then it just, the best example that I have of that is being vegan. If I didn't, based on my values and how I feel about hurting animals, if I didn't release the belief that other people should feel the way I feel, believe the way I feel, eat the way I eat, I couldn't sit down with my family
yeah,
without having a reaction.
yeah. Being
And
irritated or upset.
I have zero reaction about what anybody is doing because I'm releasing the belief that they should be any other way. Does it mean that I don't have values or preferences or boundaries or standards? Of course, I have all of that. I have more of it because I'm more true to myself now. But even though I have the values and standards, if they're not in alignment, I don't have the emotional reaction that goes along with it.
Yeah. What a beautiful place as well, if the world could be more like that. If we weren't so much in judgment of each other's, that, like you
Mhm.
say, it just is. It just, that's their programming or their belief system, and this is mine, and that's okay. We're not the same.
Yeah.
And that's probably brought you a lot of peace, I would imagine.
This
Um,
is why, and this is why, when you can see behind the programming to somebody's light,
mm,
now, is there darkness in the world? Of course. But I choose to see the light as much as possible. I think even for the darkness, there's a lot of programming that has happened. There's other things that probably has happened to have that person be in that place and doing those things, but that's a whole other podcast.
yeah,
Um, but in a general sense, you can say anything to me, but if I see your light and know what's behind the programming,
yeah,
life gets a lot easier because I feel like our work is all about getting back to our light.
yeah,
I truly do feel like that is the work.
yeah. And and when you say, like, obviously you mean like our original default programming, our highest potential self. How does that spiritual aspect come into your work? Do you feel,
So
yeah,
Yeah, it's funny. I attract a lot of spiritual people in my certification program. And
Because
I
it's
said to
quite a
my,
masculine concept, isn't it? You know,
this is
like, yeah,
it's so strange. And I said to one of my best friends, I said, I really attract a lot of spiritual people, but it's so innate to me that
mm,
I don't realize. Because I said, but am I saying things that are spiritual? And she's like, Diana, I just don't, it's so innate that I just see it as, okay, you are light and you have programming getting in the way of it. It's about remembering but releasing the programming. Like that is basically the foundation. That's it.
yeah,
And I keep attracting a lot of spiritual people, which I absolutely love, to be in their energy. But there's a reason for that, I guess. So to answer your question, it's not this intentional thing that I'm doing, or it isn't like you don't have to be spiritual because you're working with the brain. It's very logical and practical. And I had someone the other day who said the same thing. She's like, this really attracts the clients who want something more what they would consider masculine.
yeah,
And this is why it's a perfect certification for people who maybe are in careers like healing and light work, because it truly is that combination. So when you're doing yoga and breath, when you're teaching Reiki and yoga and breath work, like I'm trained to do all of those. But the reason why the subconscious healing is so amazing is that all of that healing work that you do with your client, or like I said, Reiki or breath work or meditation, or even health coaches, I have lots of health coaches, all of that can go deeper and be lasting because you're removing the trigger, which is the belief, the programming in the subconscious mind. That's why it's such a beautiful combination. Not sure how it all happened,
yeah.
how it kind of like unfolded that way, but I guess you attract the energy, the vibration you put out as well, I guess.
Manifestation as well is something that's always kind of interested me in people's personal power, and how one person can seemingly manifest incredible opportunities and other people can seemingly manifest really unfortunate events. And it's quite interesting because again, that seems to be quite a spiritual concept, but when you have the grounding in
Mm,
the subconscious programming, you can see quite clearly how some people would be repelling, great opportunities to come their way that seem to be almost magical. It's like that's
mm,
if you have this grounding in whatever it is that you are then sharing and serving, and however you're expressing yourself with your clients, this is going to give it that extra layer, isn't it? So even if you're a
mhm.
manifestation coach, that you know
100%.
we know so many people that are like, I read the law of attraction, now I'm a manifestation coach, and it's like,
Right.
you get no idea what is,
Mm,
there's certainly an element of that, thinking positively and being of a high vibrational state, but it's also, like you say, if you don't have the programming that is in alignment with what it is that you want to attract,
mhm.
no amount of affirmations or
No,
crystals are
no.
going to be able to help you
Yeah.
to move past that hurdle.
Yeah. So in a very practical sense,
Yeah,
when you're a manifestation coach, one of the things you're telling people is to get in the frequency of what it is that you want.
yeah,
It will be impossible to get in the frequency by visualization if you do not believe it is possible
yeah,
on the
yeah,
subconscious level. Your conscious brain might be like, yes, this is possible. I'm going to do it. I'm going to visualize it every day. But if your subconscious mind is going, not going to happen,
yeah,
the frequency you're admitting
yeah.
is not the same frequency of what it is that you want to attract.
Yeah, and with that kind of work, it is like you say, new level, new devil, new all the time.
Yes. Yes.
And even now, like I have, money mindset, something that obviously I feel really passionate about. My connection to work is obviously ensuring that women are financially empowered and independent. But even now, where I think the work is done, and I'm like, oh yeah, because I could rattle off my money story and why I, was
Yes.
behaving in certain ways, but there'll even be things that come to me
100%.
now and I'm like, oh my God, I was in the shower the other day and I was just suddenly thinking of something, running through what I was going to say, I think on like a guest expert session. And I was like, oh my God, I've just connected the dots on something that I didn't even know. Do I really believe that? Oh my God, like I need my journal. I had to like literally get out of the shower and just follow this train of thought, because I was like,
Mhm.
I've kind of essentially removed the foundation from one belief, but it's now kind of something else has happened instead. And that's what I love. Like this work never ends. So I guess even for somebody right now who is a coach and even certified coach, this would be something that they should still, invest in either for themselves or to work with their clients, because the work is never done, is it?
Exactly.
And I believe that I'm quite spiritual, that we're spiritual beings here to grow and experience, like you say, the full range of emotions, but also, you know, we can only get to, it's almost like fish in a tank, like a fish will only grow as big as the container that it's in. And
Hmm.
like I say, you can do one level of work around your mindset and your beliefs, but that's only going to get you so far. And then once you go to, you've got to do more work to get to that next level. And that's what our ultimate goal is here, is to expand and grow and be the highest potential that we can be whilst we're here having this like physical experience.
Yes.
So this is very exciting because there's not many new things that kind of like cross my path as such, that I'm not like, well, essentially that's just NLP, or essentially that's just da da da. But this
Yeah.
actually fit, like, genuinely, this feels even more exciting because, like you say, it's not just trying to create new network
Yeah.
pathways, it's actually removing the whole this could be, wow, this could be
Yeah.
truly life changing.
And
And
the
I
number
guess,
of times that I hear from my coaches and their clients and my own clients and myself personally, this is the thing that actually worked for me.
yeah,
So whenever a coach gets certified, I always ask them, before you go out into the world doing this work, I need to hear what your personal experience was with practicing it yourself, because you will be a better coach when you have done the subconscious healing work yourself. And every single time I hear, this is the thing that finally worked to either release this or many things. So yes, it's pretty incredible.
and I guess that's the thing. Obviously, if they're also experiencing this transformation themselves, that's what then enables them to go out and
Yes.
run successful businesses. Because what I'm sure you see as well as I do in the online space is the biggest travesty as well, is that there's so many people with beautiful gifts, with great
Mhm.
intentions, but they are not going out and building sustainable businesses for fear of not being spiritual if they charge too much money, for
Yes.
trying to help absolutely everybody and not, just focusing on a select group of women or people that they can help. And then ultimately not building a business that's sustainable, that
Yeah.
they can then be supported themselves. And I guess, yeah, this is what's enabled you to obviously carry that forwards, and then also get into a masculine, build a very successful business, build a certification, build an incredible podcast as well. That just, it feels it, doesn't it? You've got to be at your most empowered state to then be able to go
100%.
out and do that for others. Oh, it just sounds amazing. Like, you've given me so much to think about. And I think this will connect the dots for a lot of women who are feeling like, why can't God, what is wrong with me? Why can't I be consistent? Why can't I make the money that everybody else is when I'm looking around on Instagram? Am I not good enough? Am I not, am I not consistent enough? Am I not meant to do this work?
Mm.
There'll be a lot of women now that are kind of giving themselves a bit of grace. I
Yeah.
hope that actually it's not you. It's like you
Yes.
say, you've come out of the box with the default program, and it's now kind of, just needs some tweaking. But with
Yeah.
that, absolutely anything is possible for you. You can have a six-figure business. There's no reason why you can't have a seven-figure business. You can have that ultimate fulfillment and purpose, if you just do that work first of all, which feels really
Mhm.
exciting. So I hope that a lot of women are going to be really inspired by the potential of what is available to them if they
Yes.
are currently labeling themselves as an introvert or not very good with money or not very confident. There's light at the end of that tunnel, that actually everything is possible, which
Mhm.
is super exciting. So if anybody does want to come and find you and learn a bit more about this work, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Sure. So before I say that, if anyone is thinking something like, what's wrong with me? Or why can't I do this? Why am I procrastinating? Why am I feeling fearful? And why am I not being as successful as the person next to me? I want you to know there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. You are everything that you need to be. You are already everything that you need to be. It is about the journey of remembering by releasing the programming.
Mm.
It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's not about being good or bad, right or wrong, weak or strong. We are all the same in that way. So I just wanted to make sure if you are feeling that way that you recognize that you are already everything you need to be. If you do want to reach out to me, I would love for you to listen to the podcast, which is called Your Light is Your Legacy. That's my favorite place to be and to hang out and to connect with people. So I'd love for you to listen, and you can check me out on Instagram. You can send me a DM if you want to ask questions about the methodology. I am at ThoughtWork Institute, and there's underscore. I always laugh when I say this because I don't know why I put these underscores underneath each word, because then I have to remember. Nobody else remembers. So it's the ThoughtWork Institute, but there's an underscore under each word, and hopefully you'll have the link in the show notes. So
thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I think this is going to help empower a lot of women. And it's just been fantastic to get a better understanding of the work that you do as well. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you. And I'll catch you ladies on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode. It's been amazing to share this time with you, and I feel honoured to be part of your journey. If you've loved what you've heard, had an aha moment, or found value in this episode, then please do like, comment and share. I would love to connect with you on Instagram and Facebook, so come and find me, and I look forward to helping you build your epic life.